Good evening, and welcome to another episode of The Fire Caves, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast. I am one of your hosts, Perry.
So I'm your host, David. Tonight we're talking about Season 4, Episode 11, Homefront. But before we continue, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube as The Fire Caves, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast.
That is correct. And as I say every single week, you should find us and follow us because we are awesome. We have given up on Twitter, so don't worry about that for now. You can find us where David said you can find us, except for that place.
Yep,
And
yep,
we will engage with you as best we can. As we say, also be courteous, be polite, and we'll all have a good time that way.
yeah.
Um, did also want to say that this episode will be the last episode that we do where there is such a significant delay between the live show and catching the broadcast on wherever platform it is that you use to listen to
Podcast.
podcast. Typically, we do this, we record and everything else on Saturday evening, and then we do our editing process the next week, and then the episode comes out. We're going to cut all of that out, and basically, when we go live, you can obviously tune in and watch us and listen to us live. And then about an hour to an hour and a half after the live show ends, the episode will then be available on whatever platform it is that you listen to. So just a way to kind of like give you more stuff right away, and also to free us up to do some other things with our YouTube channel and some creating other content and things like that for you. Um, so yeah, just look forward to that. And again, this will be the last one, and this is also to allow us to bring you more. Or I guess more up-to-date news on things that are happening in the greater Trek verse instead of you having to wait to hear them so long. If you're a person, especially if you're a person who is only listening to the podcast and not seeing the live show, if there's something that you want to discuss or whatever, this will give you an opportunity to hear more about that in closer to time anyway
Right.
than you could before. So hopefully that's okay with everyone. Hopefully I don't see why anybody would mind that they don't have to wait a week to hear the episode or
Right.
anything like that. But yeah, just look forward to that. And again, this will be the last one. When this episode comes out, which will be June 3rd, when we come back the following week, that'll all be like right on
Yep.
pace.
Yep.
Okay.
The new schedule will be debuting.
Yes. Yes. But I just want everybody to know so that you can have ample time to prepare yourself and, just go ahead and schedule yourself to be a part of the live show because, why wait an hour when you can see us right now? Right. So yeah, look forward to that. Look forward to that change. Um, but before we get into everything else that we're going to be talking about tonight, David, how was your week?
It's been good. So this week is Memorial Day week here at work. So the week itself was slow, and last week was slow. But this weekend, man, boom! I've been getting people in. That's what I was expecting. I was talking with the manager, the guy right above me, who's like the guy I report to, and I was like, "Yeah, man, it's kind of slow right now, but I won't be surprised if come Saturday morning it's going to start being busy." And bam, right at opening, 10 o'clock, three different people walk in. It's like, all right, let's do it. Other thing going on is I did finally finish watching season 2 of Altered Carbon, which I liked. It's not as good as season 1, but I think season 1 really knocked it out of the park. Season 2 is not a bad season, and Anthony Mackie does a good job of trying to follow up in the footsteps of the guy who's the character in season 1. The actor's name I don't remember, but Anthony Mackie is doing her, her, her doing a fantastic job. Herculean, Hercules, I can't think of the word how to pronounce it.
Herculean.
Herculean. There you go. Yeah, he does a great job. Season 2 is great. Again, not quite as good as season 1, only because season 1 really knocks it out of the park, and season 2 is having to follow up with, I think, a great story. But the setting is different, and a number of characters are not present from the first season. They're replacing certain characters with new characters because of the nature of the story. I do
And
plan on reading
correct me
the book.
if I'm wrong, but isn't this next season of Ultra Carbon, isn't it also set even further into the future? Like, do they do a
Correct.
time jump?
It's
Okay.
a 30 year jump from the previous season. So the main character again, part of the plot is that people can have their memories downloaded into basically these chips that are implanted into the back of their skull. And so your body, if it dies, you can be replaced into a new body. And
Mhm.
so Anthony Mackie's character, Anthony Mackie, the actor, is the sleeve, the new body for the main character in this season. And he's trying to find his love interest, the woman he thought was dead. He has been searching for her for the last 30 years and finally has a lead. And that's what season 2 is about. So yeah, Altered Carbon, great show on Netflix. Unfortunately, it was canceled after this season, even though there is at the end of this season there is the idea that a third season could start, but it is a fairly it's okay that season 2 ended where it did. I don't have to have a season 3 to feel like the story would conclude. It's not like it was such a cliffhanger that I can't say I'm sad it's over. I am sad it's over. I think it was a great show, but it's not like it's cut off in the middle of a giant cliffhanger that everything's now ruined because the story ended. So it's another season, another show with 2 seasons. Counterpart, the one with I can't remember his name, but anyway, I mentioned Counterpart a couple times. Altered Carbon's a great show. The show I want to watch next, which is coming out on Apple TV right now, is called Silo. My parents are watching it. Apparently, it's really good. Um, you're
So
your head there.
yeah, I was because I saw the promo for the show, and it instantly made me think of another sci-fi show that was incredibly short-lived, but I thought had a lot of potential, and it was called Ascension.
I think
And
that's what my parents said. I haven't heard of that
yeah,
show either, but
it's from what I could see of the promo for Silo, the setup is the same, and so it's got me interested to I want to watch Silo to see how similar the shows are. Ascension, when it aired, was a story about these people who were launched into deep space in the 60s, right? It was like I think they were launched in like 68 or something like that. I think that was the year. And so there was a lot of societal and cultural changes and things like that were going on around that time. We had, the civil rights movement was in full go, and there was stuff going on with the military and everything else. So there was you were watching this stuff kind of playing out on this ship that was traveling in deep space. And it later turns out that they actually had never launched. They were all had been tricked into thinking they
mm,
were on a spaceship when really they were basically in a giant weapon silo that had been fashioned into a um, a fake spaceship, and they were being fed fake data from the outside. And on
to
the
see how they would
outside,
react.
right, but on the outside, it was like this
Uh,
long-term study, and it was like on the outside, it was 1999, but for everybody
wow.
inside the ship, as far as they were concerned, it was yeah, like 1967, 1968, whatever.
Huh.
And so you were watching all of this cultural dynamic play out along with the space aspect of it, and you're trying to figure out who knows what's really going on versus who doesn't, and all of that. And it only had one season, but it was um I thought it had a lot of great potential, especially considering, like, for me, it came around right around the end of the reboot Battlestar Galactica. So like I
Mm,
think like the next year this show was out.
okay.
And yeah, like it ticked a lot of boxes for me for what I was looking for TV wise at the
Right.
time. And then it only had like one season, and I was quite
Right.
upset. I was like, how does it
Huh.
why would you do that?
I'll have to
It's a
check it
great
out.
premise,
That
and
sounds
then
good
one
too.
season. Yeah.
Well, so
So
Silo is based on a trilogy of books, the Silo trilogy. The first book is called Wool, and then Shift, and then Dust. So I've already gone ahead and ordered the books because me being a bibliophile, love books, love reading. So I want to finish the Altered Carbon books first, but because the Silo show is currently airing, I'm wondering, like, I'm trying to think, am I going to watch season 1 of Silo and then read the books? Because I sometimes like the idea of reading the book first and then measuring the show against the book. But just like The Expanse, I love The Expanse TV show. I like Altered Carbon, the TV show. Maybe I'll just do Silo, watch the first season as it's coming out right now on Apple TV, read the book, see how they compare. But yeah, that's what I'm looking into. And of
okay.
course, I've been playing Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom like crazy. I've been staying up way too late playing it. um, uh, it's a fantastic game. It's really funny too
Yeah.
because my one of my friends he's like further along than I am, and like from the early onset, like he was ahead of me, and it's like, oh, man, like I feel like I'm playing a lot, and he's already like way ahead of me. I'm like, what's going on?
Man,
But I'm
that's
having a great
definitely
time.
definitely how it goes. I
Yeah,
as I've told you before, had started playing the Mass Effect series over
yeah,
again,
yeah.
and I've been following some people on Twitch who are playing it as well, and we all had started it around the same time, but they're already done with the first game and they're moving into the next one. I'm like not even close. I'm still in like the initial stages of the first game, and
Right,
it's because like I had decided that I wanted to like read everything and like be a completionist
right.
this go round,
Yes,
and so there's just like there's a lot of extra things that I'd completely forgotten about. And so I was
right,
enjoying that, but it does take a lot of time to do those things. And
right.
then I'm also not playing every day. I wish I could, but there's just other things I have to do, like,
Yes,
work and other stuff and whatever else.
right.
So I mean, I wish I could.
Yeah.
I really do, because I think I would like, knock some of this stuff out. But still, I'm enjoying it. But I said the same thing when I tuned back in to one guy's channel that I was following on Twitch, and he was like, "And I'm, in the middle of this," and
Moving
he
on
was
to
just
game
talking about, it,
two.
and I suddenly realized he was not talking about the first game, and I was like, "Oh crap!" And so like I felt like I had missed something, but I hadn't missed anything. It's just he had naturally continued on, and I was like, "Okay, well, whatever,
Right.
fine."
Well, what's funny about a new game like the one I'm playing is like you want to avoid spoilers as
Mm.
much as possible. So, like, it's funny. I've clicked on YouTube videos about the game. Like, I've gotten stuck, so I click on a little thing to like, how do I get unstuck here? And now my YouTube feed is
Oh
like,
man,
hey, all the
oh
content from the
man,
game everyone's putting out. You're like, stop
yeah.
it, stop it, stop it, stop
That's
it.
what I was going through with Star Trek Picard when it was on, because you click a couple,
Yeah.
3 or 4 videos in a row, you click them, and then all of a sudden that's all your feed is. I had to break it up and just start watching nature
Yes.
documentaries, so that was what my feed got
Yes. To
filled with,
tell
so that
your
I
feed
could
would
get away
change.
from it for a while. Because yeah, I have to do that now, because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
there's so much Trek stuff that's out, and everybody's talking about upcoming shows and
Right.
whatever else. In order to get a break from any of it, I just like switch to something random. Like I'll pick, yeah, nature shows or cooking shows or something like that to break it up, so that I'm not just looking at Star Trek all the time. Um,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Um, yeah, it's been an interesting week. Kind of boring. Like you said, it's been Memorial. It's Memorial Day right now, or this week, the weekend, Memorial Day weekend, and I actually don't have to work
Right.
tomorrow. But I feel like I've oddly already filled up my time with things that I need to do, and I don't necessarily want to be busy tomorrow. So I've been trying to like use yesterday and today to like knock out a bunch of things, so that I could just have a day to really just do nothing, or just play video games or whatever it is. But all that to say, and since you're talking about books as well that you want to read, I'm going to go ahead and jump the gun and start the next book in the Expanse.
Okay. Book four. All right.
I think you should just go ahead and read something else for a while, because you finish everything too
Yeah.
quick. Let me get
Yeah.
ahead of you a little
That's
bit,
fine. That's fine. I got
and then
plenty to read.
yeah,
Trust me.
because I need to catch up with my girl Avasarala.
Yeah.
I've been missing
Speaking
her a
of
little bit.
which, last
Um,
week, I mean, do you want to answer the question
Yes,
now?
that's right.
Avasral
You
versus
did.
Rosalind.
Yes, before it gets too deep into our show that we still haven't talked about our actual topic. Um, I gave it a lot of thought, and I actually ended up watching a lot of Battlestar Galactica
Just
recently,
to.
just to kind of, and especially the first seasons. What I like about Laura Roslin is that she's got this, she's quiet, but then when it comes time to utilize her power and authority, she does. And it's not she's not like mean about it per se, but it's just like you fully understand that like she is definitely in control in the moment.
Right.
Avasarala is very grand, like it was
Yes.
never a question that she was, the one pulling the strings, the
Yeah.
true puppet master here. There was never a question. Plus, she looks amazing. So
Yeah.
uh, it's hard, but I think for now I am gonna have to give it to Awasarala. She is amazing. I think she's like what I wished Laura would be, and I think that
Yeah.
what Laura eventually becomes, because we see a lot of Laura kind of like coming into the role and then not wanting to let it go, versus Avasarala, who was always in power, has a little bit of a shuffling. But even when she is kind of knocked out of her role for a little bit, she never is diminished in her um, a scope or ability.
Right.
You know, so I think that's what it was. I think like Laura kind of comes up to that, but Avasarala already is that. So
Right.
I think that's why that works for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Avasarala, man, she beats out
Now,
the Battlestar Galactica Rosalind. Okay.
but I love them both, and
If
mutual
either one of
respect for
them would have
both.
show up and said, "Perry, I love you."
No, no, not to that degree. I'm not gonna, I'm not crazy here. I'm just saying
Okay.
that I think they're both fantastic characters. I think they're both portrayed very well. Mary McDonnell as Laura Roslin, and then Sheree Agdashlu as Avasarala. I think that both ladies do an excellent job with those characters. There's a lot of things about them that are very similar, and I would love to see more characters like them in other things. Or, hey, Amazon, give us the rest of the Expanse already. Stop being jerks and give us the rest of the show. We know
Right.
that it's out there. So like
Yeah.
just do it already. All right. But as I say every week, almost every week, we are not here to talk about the Expanse and Laura Roslin and all that, even though we could, and I totally could.
Yeah.
We're not here to talk about that. We are here to talk about Homefront, and an interesting episode to say the least. When we talk about what we're seeing here in regards to the changing face of the Federation and the looming Dominion threat, but also getting this odd. This is an odd way to check in on like our favorite family, the Ciscos, and seeing a new dimension of the Cisco family
Yeah.
as well. So we're going to get into all that now. Um, did you want to give the recap, David?
No,
Hit
this
the
is a
high
you.
points.
This is a you recap. This is definitely a you
Okay.
recap.
So, and to help us out, I'm going to just kind of hit it high and let's go.
Let's do it.
All right. So the episode starts with Odo is complaining about Dax moving things around in his quarters, and he's complaining to Quark of all people. Like that was really going to carry any kind of sympathy, whatever, right? He gets called into ops. All of the officers are there in ops, and Worf is informing everybody that there was this conference that had gone on Earth, and something had happened at the conference. They load up the video, and we see an explosion, and all the delegates wiped out in a huge fire explosion. But as they slow down the video and they focus in on this vase in the background, we see that it shifts a little bit to indicate there was a changeling there when the bomb went off. So, I mean, my first immediate question was, of course, did the changeling die in the video? Because, I mean, it's kind of implied that they died. It's like, I didn't realize that the changelings were suiciding or were a part of that kind of kamikaze nature, but,
Yeah.
you know,
Hmm.
whatever. So, Cisco and Odo are called back to Earth, and they're basically wanting to get Starfleet's wanting to get a more updated debrief. And Odo's just kind of like, I don't understand the point. I put everything in my notes. There's no reason for me to go, but I'll go anyway because you want me to. He and Cisco go. They leave everybody else back on the station. They arrive on Earth, and this is where we meet Captain Benteen and Admiral Layton. And we find out that Admiral Layton is the one who recommended Cisco for the posting at Deep Space Nine. And
Right.
Captain Benteen is the
Was
captain of the Lakota, which is the ship that brought them to Earth. And Cisco had worked under Layton years ago, and that's kind of how they have this kind of obviously they have a positive past history, kind of a mentor
right.
mentee type scenario here. Um,
Right.
Cisco and Odo meet with the captain and the admiral respectively, and they're kind of telling the same thing. Hey, we are more than willing to help out, but we kind of gave you everything in our reports. And Layton's like, well, yeah, but you guys know more about the Dominion than anybody else. So effective immediately, Cisco, you are now the head of Starfleet security. And it's just like instant promotion, which, hey, I wish I could roll into a job like that. You showed up thinking there
Yeah.
was going to be trouble, and they're like, nope, we're promoting you.
Well, there is
Yeah.
trouble. and you're getting a promotion because
Yeah,
of it.
because of the trouble. So, so now they're talking about things that they can do to shore up their defenses. They're basically like Earth is, a sitting duck. If this kind of thing can happen here on Earth, then it can happen anywhere. We really need to shore up our defenses. And Cisco's like, okay, well, we've got some things we could do to make things a little bit safer. We just got to get clearance for that. Meanwhile, Jake has come along with them as well because they were going back to Earth, and this gives them a chance to meet with family, in particular, his grandfather, Joseph Sisko. So now we see the OG Cisco here, right? Granddad Cisco, and he
Mhm.
runs a restaurant in New Orleans, which is the Cisco family hometown, and he is quite the lively character. He's got a story for
Yes.
every dish. He's got a smile and a laugh and a joke. He's got some kind of antiquated folksy wisdom for some things. Like he tells Jake the only time that you should be in bed is when you're sleeping or when you're with a pretty lady, basically.
Yeah.
Things along that nature.
Dying, yeah, you're dying, sleeping, or with a
Yeah.
pretty lady. Yeah,
So something along
yeah.
those lines he's got there, and we also find out a little bit more about Joseph, and we know that he is sick. And this is actually a callback to an earlier episode when Oda was having a similar issue with Dr. Mora, and Mora was sick, and Cisco had alluded to the fact that his father had suffered from a debilitating illness, and they had thought that he was going to die then. And in the episode, it's kind of alluded to that makes you think that Cisco's father did die, but it turns out it was just something that it nearly killed him, and he never truly got back to full strength. He never got
100%.
his health all the way back, so he's been kind of slowly suffering from some other things. And we know that from this episode he's got arthrosclerosis, which is basically the blockage and deterioration of uh, veins and arteries and stuff near his heart. um, and so he's supposed to be seeing a doctor regularly. He's clearly not. And Cisco is concerned about his elderly father's health.
Right.
Joseph kind of waves him off and he's just like, don't worry about me. You got enough things going on here. And this is my home and I'm fine and so forth and so on. Cisco is, trying to shore up things with Starfleet Command. They go and meet the Federation president, Jarish Enyo, who I don't know what race he is. He's a very interesting looking um, alien, but he's the president of
Yeah.
Earth, and they're trying to get him to give them permission to
Authority to
do
put in
more broad range controlling
security
things,
sweeps.
right?
Yeah.
But Jarish Inyo is concerned about the fact that this would basically be taking away from the near utopia like status that has cropped up on Earth. He doesn't want to be the president who kind of ended that and established a form of martial law. Cisco and Leighton are like, it's not martial law, but we have these open security issues that we really need to address. They use Odo to scare Enyo. He agrees finally to give them the permission that they need. They start implementing blood screenings, phaser sweeps, and all kinds of other things to kind of like beef up security. They
Right.
end up running into an issue when it comes to the blood screenings because Cisco's order makes it to where all Starfleet officers and their families, immediate families, have to get regular blood screenings. Joseph Cisco refuses. He's just like, you're not going to take my blood. You're not, this is I'm a free man. I have, rights, and you're not going to just come in here and take my blood and so forth and so on. Cisco
Right.
tries to convince him. Jake does the test. He does the test. But elderly Cisco's like, I'm not doing it. I don't care.
Right.
Cisco's like, Dad, you don't go to the doctor, you don't take your medicine, you don't eat regularly, you don't rest, you don't do anything anyone ever asks you to. Can you please just one time get on board?
Right.
Can you just do the thing? And he's like, no, not gonna do it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny. Like, I know it was a very serious scene, but I love that that was the breakdown because Cisco is like begging with his dad to do this thing, and his
Right.
dad's just like, no, I'm not gonna do it.
Right.
And they start to, kind of debate back and forth about it. Joseph Cisco ends up cutting himself. Ben is so, wrapped up in this whole who could be a changeling thing that he's, is starting to even suspect his own father.
Right. So
The
he's
cut,
very clearly
yes, the
relieved.
cut
Yeah.
reveals that he is not a changeling. He's very relieved by it, but Joseph Sisko is outraged that he discovered that his son even questioned whether or not he was a changeling. This
Right.
causes him to have a looks like a panic attack, which then we later find out is a stroke. He has a stroke and is later resting. No, I forgot. Nog does show up. He visits at the restaurant to eat tube grubs. Apparently, Joseph Sisko was getting these for him and serving them for
Right.
him. Um, and he kind of has some complaints about a Starfleet Academy. There are some standoffish students who don't want to have anything to do with them, but he kind of knew this is how it was going to be because he's a cadet and he's a Ferengi and so forth and so on.
The Red
The
Group
Red
or Red
Squad.
Corps is
They're
that
called Red Squad.
Red
They're
Squad,
like an elite
and it's
group
a
of
new.
cadets who
Yeah,
apparently they get like top level training and clearance and secret missions and all these cool things. And he really wants to be a part of Red Squad, but they just won't give him the time of day.
and I am definitely keeping an eye on these
Yeah.
kiddos. Let me tell you, keeping it. Yeah,
So
yeah,
Leighton and Cisco meet, and while Leighton's kind of okay with how things have gone, he wants more. He wants to beef things up even more. He wants more control. He's concerned that they're just not going to get it, and that Josh Enyo, while he's a great captain and he's a Grazerite, I looked it up. Grazerite is the name of his species. That he's a great, you know, politician in peacetime. He would have been a great president in peacetime, but wars are coming. And
yeah.
Leighton is convinced that, if they don't take better security measures, then things are just going to go from bad to worse. And almost prophetically, he says this. And then all power on Earth is shut down. The relay stations or whatever else go dark. And, we're with Jake and Joseph in New Orleans when the power goes out, and they find out that this is planet wide. Ben Cisco and company are able to put out Starfleet troops thanks to the Lakota being in orbit, and they're able
Right,
to beam people around the planet to get them into secure locations and so forth. And they basically come to the conclusion that the only way that all of the power systems on Earth could have possibly failed simultaneously is with sabotage. There must be a changeling on Earth. Um, Wait, they already knew there was a changeling on Earth. I forgot a key
well,
part there because Odo had been shape shifting earlier in the day, or at least one
right,
of the days.
right,
And Bentine and Leighton had come up to him shortly after he had resumed his normal Odo form after being a seagull for a while.
right,
And Admiral Leighton, is very insulting to him while he's there. And Odo kind of picks up on the negativity and he realizes that's not really Admiral Leighton. And when he grabs his hand and kind of forces him to do their, changeling meld thing with him, revealing that he's a changeling who then spirits away, right?
right,
And so yeah, Leighton later asked him, like, how did you know? And he's like, I could just feel that he didn't like me. Because
right,
as we know, Odo is the first changeling in history, apparently, to have ever harmed another changeling. So this
right,
has created this schism between him and the rest of his people.
right,
So yeah, they know there's a changeling on Earth. Now we have the sabotage, which is being blamed um on the changeling. And now Josh Enyo is like, that's it. Like, that's more than enough to convince me. I'm going to declare martial law, and it's done. Starfleet now has full control and authority to do whatever they need to do in order to secure the planet, and that puts Admiral Leighton Prime in charge, just uh, like he wanted.
right.
And this is essentially the end of the episode. Obviously it's a two-parter. This is the first part. Next is going to be um, Paradise Lost, and we see what happens. So that's it.
Gotcha.
Essentially, that's it for now.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, yeah. That's it.
So, like I said, great episode. Lots of great things to talk about. But I love to ask you always first, of course, as the first-time viewer, never seen this episode before, what did you think?
Yeah. So this one is again, we've said so many times that episodes need to be two-parters, and this one, I'm glad it is a two-parter because it needs it, and it's a great climactic moment. This is a big deal. I mean, Earth, the center of the Federation, is being compromised by the Dominion, by the changelings. And this is the worst case scenario, that they are impersonating high level officials on Earth. I mean, we can't trust anybody, not
If
a
they can get
single
to
person.
Admiral Layton, they
Exactly.
can get to
I
anybody.
mean, do we even know that the Leighton that we have now is even the real man? Like, it's still possible that.
I'm gonna say that no, we're pretty confident that it is because remember they meet with Odo later, and Odo's like, "How did?" And Leighton's like, "How did you know it's not me?" So it's clear that Odo has an ability to distinguish who's a changeling and who's not. He obviously
Right,
has to be in close proximity to them to
right.
know that. So I think it's pretty safe to assume that anytime we see Odo around anyone else, they're probably not a changeling.
Okay, all right. Well, then fair enough. Point though being that, um, outside of Odo's ability to, in close
Sense
quarters,
their
determine.
hatred, right?
Yeah, it's this is the worst case scenario, and the fact that they could knock all of Earth's power off in one fell swoop. I mean, I don't know how interconnected the energy is supposed to be in the future, but it's still got to be some massive undertaking, even in the future of Star Trek here. So this is a big deal, and it's a good episode because we see, the build up of, okay, how do we put in some security measures? We have Odo being the person that they use to test the security measures. He gets stunned 13 different times as they put in the laser grid thing in the rooms. He pretends to be a suitcase so that when Cisco is trying to convince the president, hey, this is serious. Oh, the suitcase you thought was just a suitcase is actually Odo. Um, so yeah, it's a good episode in that sense. We got rising tension. We have a serious threat. We've had this threat looming for seasons now. For, well, I guess for a season and a half, because it wasn't really till
Mhm.
season three that we understood this threat. Um, and Yeah, we get to see the Cisco's. That's very important. We get to find out more. I mean, this is the first time we've seen Grandpa Cisco. It really teaches us a lot about Benjamin Cisco. His
We're gonna
father
definitely get
is.
into that too. That is
Yeah.
of critical importance, I feel.
Yes. Yeah. We really learn. I would say, basically, the summarized version I'll give now is that, um, I think everyone thinks back on how their parents raised them, loved them, cared for them, failed them, and they use those experiences as they try and parent their own children. So you can see Cisco is trying to be very involved with his son, and listen to his son, and take feedback from his son, because his father does not. His father is his own man and won't
Very
take
much so.
feedback from Benjamin, and it hurts Benjamin because he cares for his father, but his father is extremely stubborn, and that causes
Yeah.
Cisco a lot of pain. But anyway,
I
we
would
can
say
really
that
go into.
yeah, I would say that family dynamic, he's more as the elderly Cisco, he's used to clearly taking care of other people. He runs the
Yes,
restaurant. He is the man in charge. He's used to, he's very loving with Ben, I would say, but at the same time, it's that constant I am your father, you are not mine, so you're not going to
right,
tell me what to do thing that we're seeing
right,
play out here a lot, which I think is a classic um, trope that we see a lot when it comes to the father son dynamic.
yeah,
And it's interesting to see, like, especially on television, like that part I feel like is very, very common. And then
right,
to watch Ben and Jake interact, and we see where Ben listens to Jake and
right,
he responds to Jake and he gives
yes,
Jake the ability to make his own decisions and make his own mistakes as well, and not try to like
right,
overrule him or anything like that. Seeing that difference between the two of them eh,
yeah,
is great, and then to see it like with Ben in the middle. We see his interaction with his father, with him and his father, and then
right,
him and Jake. Great dynamic to
right,
see. I love that. So yeah, we are going to talk about that more for sure. But yeah,
yeah. Yeah, it's a great dynamic. You get that, you understand why Cisco is so passionate about food, and his culture and who he is, um, and we know that Jake has been around his grandfather. Oh man, every time I have to go to the restaurant, I have to cut up vegetables, and Benjamin's like, nope, you're an adult
time
now.
time honored tradition right there, putting the
Yeah,
kid to work
and
in
now you're
the
going to
in
be
the
waiting
restaurant.
tables.
Yeah, he's not going to. That's what he says. He's not going to expect you to clean and shuck oysters. He's going to expect you to bust tables and wait on
Yeah.
tables.
Yeah, I
Great
really wish we could have
stuff.
seen some of that. We actually don't see any of
I
that.
wish so too. I
Yeah,
really do wish that like we had seen them put Jake to work, especially Mister. I want to be a writer, and it's like, oh, hey,
yeah.
experience. Here you
Yes,
go. Here's a great way
waiting.
to get some
Yes,
experience. You
that's
know,
exactly right. Well, I also want to see some Jake Sisko interacting with some Earth girls. You know, he's been on a foreign station. What's it? He's been interacting with alien women basically, and but coming home to the girls from New Orleans. What is that like?
that's a
We
great.
don't have we don't have time for that, I guess. But I'm sure that Nog and Jake, when they get together privately, they reminisce about their escapades and their as they have been separated by
That's
Nog going
right. Because
away.
I mean, at this point, you know, because you have to remember when Jake left home as it was, he was 9 years old when we first meet Jake, and they're on their way to D Space Nine. He's 9 years old. Before that, we know that they were living at least for a while on the Saratoga. That was Ben's old posting with, and so Jake and Jennifer were there as well. So I mean, I would imagine that the amount of time that uh, Jake has spent on Earth has probably been very little, you know.
Mhm.
And so here comes Nog, who has been at the academy at least a
A
year,
month.
maybe a
It's
little, a
no, it's
month.
been a month.
I said it's been a month. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So yeah, I mean, like their experiences are probably going to be rather similar,
Mhm.
to a certain degree. But then yeah, it's just like there has to be a cultural difference. Like you've been on a
Right.
space station, people are coming and going and all that kind of stuff versus people who are here. This is their planet, this is their home. Like, yeah, that would have been an interesting thing to hear about, at least a
Right.
little bit more than what we got.
Right.
Jake does try to get Nog to talk a little bit about it, and Nog's just kind of like, they call it the academy, but it's really just school. You're
Yeah.
back in school.
Right.
So
Yeah. And it wasn't until you were recapping the episode mentioning the Red Squad and we forgot to. The one thing you didn't mention was that Nog goes to Cisco. Apparently, it's older officials, officers who have to sponsor a cadet in order to be in Red Squad. So it's not just this group of clicky popular cadets. It's actually an official group of some kind. And so he wants Cisco to be his sponsor. And I have to say, I mean, Cisco is not at all. He's like, I mean, he's busy. We get he's busy, but he doesn't want to give poor Nog the time of day. He is doing everything he can to squirm out of this responsibility. Oh, I don't want
well,
to sponsor anybody.
yeah. I think that I've thought about that a little bit, and I think that Cisco already sponsored Nog to get into the academy in the first place.
Right,
And, now he's back here. He's in a new role himself. He's been promoted. He's got a lot on his plate that he's got to do. And not to mention, not just with his job, but also he's dealing with his father, who is sickly and cantankerous and all the
right,
rest of it. And here comes this kid needling him about yet another recommendation. And he's kind of like, dude, you gotta work at this stuff yourself. Like I can't
yes,
do everything for you. You've got
right,
to put in the effort. You got to do the things. If they don't select you, they don't select you. Like find other people to sponsor
right,
you. If you need another officer, find another officer to sponsor you. Don't take advantage of the fact that I'm here now and try to
right.
get me to fast track you on everything. That's how I took it. Because I mean, it's one thing for Cisco to be his mentor, which I'm sure that in a lot of ways he is, but
Hmm.
it's also like you gotta, spread your wings a bit and get out there. You've only been here for a month, and you
Right,
already want me to do you a special favor to get you on this apparent elite squad that I don't know anything about. Like that's the other thing too.
yeah,
Cisco didn't know anything about Red Squad, and you
right,
just want him to come in there and throw his name in and push you into something that he doesn't understand. He doesn't know
right,
anything about it.
right,
So I understood kind of the frustration with Nog a little bit and kind of that dismissal. But I could get how for some people they might see it as, man, you're not like, why wouldn't you help him? Like this is what he wants. Like why wouldn't you do it? But I mean, Starfleet is not a we're not don't do handouts here. You
right,
got to work for stuff.
right.
So find someone else. Find another captain or a commanding officer somewhere else who could get you in.
Well, I just laugh because it's the most Picard moment Cisco's ever had of some younger. I mean, just Picard's always supposed to be like not liking kids or at least awkward around kids, and that's kind of the situation we have here. Is a barely adult Nog. I mean, he is. If he is an adult, it's as
He's
he's
an
the
adult in Ferengi culture. According to
yeah
Ferengi
in
culture,
we're in
he is an adult.
yeah in term he's only in term an adult. He's a not the reality is still yet to kick in. But
Mm.
anyway, point is that um, it's awkward. Cisco looks completely out of his depth. He's like, I got other things I got to do. This Nog, am I going to regret this? And you're already asking for favors and you just got here. Um, but yeah, as you were recapping it, it made me think. Wait a minute, why were they talking about this Red Squad so much? And the details around it are suspicious. So I'm thinking now, next episode, I won't be surprised if Red Squad turns out to have something to do with what's going on. So I'll have to keep an eye out for that.
So for me, the mention of Red Squad made me think of the Next Generation episode where Wesley had gone to the academy and then he ended up getting in trouble and almost got kicked out and all that stuff. This elite group of students who seemingly thinks that they're better than everyone else and is trying to pull things off, and it's risky. It's very risky. And I was just thinking, yeah, once again, here we go. We got cadets who think they know everything probably
Right,
out there doing stuff and some captain or whatever is not paying attention and just letting these kids run amok on his or her authority,
right,
and Nog wants a piece of that because Nog
right,
is a very ambitious individual. You can blame that on his, Ferengi heritage. You can just blame it on him being who he is, and he's always been very tenacious, and
right.
he sees an opportunity for advancement, for special placement, and he wants it. And yeah, I mean, I could see the draw of students like that, but he's not. He's certainly not doing himself any favors by not informing everybody of what Red Squad is.
Right.
He's so in love with the mystery and the power that they seem to have, but again, no one knows what Red Squad is. So why would you come to the guy that you want to recommend you for the thing and not have info on what it was? I
Yeah.
certainly wouldn't recommend somebody for a job or a position if I didn't know what it was,
Right.
but
Well, I mean, and the thing too is that when Nog is describing it to Jake, he's saying it's older cadets. So like Nog is way like if we're presuming that to be accurate, like it's like a freshman saying, "Why am I not on the varsity team? Of
exactly.
football." It's like you're not there yet, kid. Give yourself some
Right.
time. You
And it
may
would be
never
yeah,
get on there,
it would
frankly,
be
but
yeah, it would be different if and it would also be different too if he was a freshman who'd already proven himself when it was a little bit further into the year and
right,
transitioning you to the squad. As you said, he's only been there a month. Like, what could you possibly know that would have you thinking that you're ready to be a part of this elite group that is clearly selected? You're not appointed, you're
right,
selected. So yeah,
right.
um, yeah, Nog is he's I think he's a little out of his depth here,
Yes, I agree.
asking for this.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but now, I want to turn our attention, of course, to the Cisco family because this is a very unique situation that we're getting to watch here with them. And this is
Hmm.
something that we've touched on a couple of different times throughout just watching the show in general. We already know that that Ben Cisco is a single father now. We know when his wife died. We know about his deep concern of raising a child alone.
Right.
What's interesting here, and I don't know if you really pick up on it or not, but Joseph Cisco, in a way, had a similar situation. He's at some point his wife has either left or died. I think we're just kind of left to assume that she has died,
Right.
that Mother Cisco has died. We
Right.
know that Ben has a sister, at least. We don't see her, but she's referenced here in the episode. But we do see here that this is kind of a continuation of a legacy here with the father and the son. I think it's very important to bring up because in the 90s especially, this was not something that was seen a lot on television with these single parent households,
Right.
and having such a strong family dynamic, family connection, and for them to do it also focused around a black family in particular in the 90s was just leaps and bounds ahead of anything else that was being shown on television at the time. And trust
Right.
me, as a person who, one, grew up during that time watching those shows, and two, has a particular fascination with 90s television and frequently goes back and watches certain things, I can tell you right now, it just wasn't there.
Right.
And I give a lot of credit to Avery Brooks, as I've talked about before, who really took this role of black representation and black single this the black single father dynamic. He really wanted to make this um a very positive message
Right.
and vision to put out there. And
Right.
he, was very controlling of this. He's mentioned that many times. In fact, there's an interview you can watch right now on YouTube where he talks about he felt like it was the single most important aspect of his character was representing this strong, positive black father son dynamic. And he's talking about the power of the media, when they meant the media being, of course, the television media. This is that all important representation and getting
Right.
that image out there and showing it. And I always thought that Avery Brooks did a great job with it. But watching the interview and hearing him talk about how he, in particular, he broke down certain things like this and going into these scenes and working them because he wanted to make sure that they were conveyed with a certain level of comfortability and familiarity and earnestness in order to convince people that this was just as important, to everyone, you know.
Right.
And I don't know, like, how did you feel when you were watching this kind of dynamic evolve here on the show? Like, any particular takeaways, anything that you liked, you didn't like? What
Yeah.
happened?
Well, I like I said, I guess I would say I've really kind of hit on my thoughts on it. Is that you can see how Benjamin Sisko has tried to treat Jake in response to the way his father treated him. His father loves him, but does not treat him as an equal. His son does not get a chance to. You don't get to tell me to go see my doctor. Um, I you can't tell me what to do. And the scene where Benjamin is so desperately trying to get his father, please just take this test. I'm the one who implemented this test. Um, Apparently, Cisco is kind of losing it. Frankly, he's so frustrated and emotionally upset by the moment. I thought he was emotionally upset because he was like his authority would be questioned. Like if he himself is giving permissions to his own father to, okay, you don't have to do the test, then that undermines the whole point of the test throughout Starfleet. But in the moment, the way the story is told is he's now suddenly concerned his father is a changeling. So the fact that his own father doesn't, like, when he cuts himself and Benjamin sees that and is relieved, his father isn't like, oh my gosh, you are stressed, son, I love you, how can I help you, how can I care. No, he yells at his son.
Mhm.
He has a stroke because he's like, you didn't even trust me. This is how much you've been affected. He berates his own son, and it's heartbreaking, because we know how much the changelings are, how dangerous they are. We know how serious Cisco is about this position. We know how much he loves his father. How much he loves his son is an indication how much he loves his father. And so you really feel torn, because frankly, I don't think Cisco's security measures are going to be enough.
Mhm.
There's just no way. There's just the changelings have done this to multiple worlds. This is tried, and they know how to do it. They are not going to have any trouble, according to their just way of doing things, of conquering Earth. This is just one more world in their collection at some point. They're just about to topple that last domino. Um, now, I'm not saying that Cisco shouldn't try. My point is that the changelings are very good at what they do. Nothing that Cisco has done has effectively found a changeling yet. It was
Mhm.
only Odo who found another changeling. So yeah, It's great to see his father here, and I like the guy, I like the character, but yeah, man, it's so sad that grandfather Cisco is kind of a broken man in some ways. He's a very flawed person, and we can,
Um,
I would say that has helped that's developed Cisco in a way which we learn why he is that way in response to his own father.
I'm gonna disagree slightly. I don't think that he was necessarily a broken man, but I definitely can see the. He's a very proud man. He's a very,
Yeah,
like I said earlier, he's very much used to. Um, I don't necessarily want to say giving orders, but being in control, being in charge.
right,
And, that
right,
is slowly slipping away from me. There's the realization here that, there are far more days behind than ahead. And he is like everything he says, if you watch him throughout the episode, everything he says seems to be all about denying the reality of his situation and just kind of being like, everything's fine. I'm
right,
fine. The restaurant's fine. Look, I can still do this, 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 and this. And you just need to, not worry and, go on about your business. And I initially took his rejection to the blood screenings as he didn't want Ben to get his DNA for like other tests and stuff. Because Ben was
ah,
already on him about going to the doctor, and he's like, and because Ben even confronts him, it's like, I talked to your doctor. He said you haven't been to see him in 8 months, and if
right,
you don't come in for this regenerative therapy, you're gonna have a stroke. And then he
right,
has a stroke.
yes,
So um, I just took it as him being just so he wanted to be so strong
right,
for a son and to
right,
present this strong demeanor for him.
right,
And again, this is kind of that common trope that you saw on a lot of TV shows, not just in the 90s, but just keep going back, of the father who is like the gentle authoritative figure,
right,
like not really scolding and coming down on the kids, but they were harder with them, still loving but harder with them. And there was never a crack in the facade, right? Dad is strong, dad always works, dad always provides, dad always does, this and this. And then there
right,
would always be the sudden and catastrophic loss of the father, right? Like in the TV shows, dad suddenly had a heart attack or died in a crash or something along those lines. That's what happened. And you didn't
mhm,
really start to see a shift in that really until like the late 90s. It started to kind of move away from that particular trope.
right,
But even then, like I was trying to look for examples of how they kind of switched away, and none of those were particularly flattering. Like you would see the dad who either just up and just left, and mom had to like round up the kids and fend for herself, or the dad who died from drinking too much, you
right,
know. So that was the new one. He didn't have a heart attack anymore. He drank himself to death, or was a workaholic, and now he's the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, but he doesn't know his kids. And what movie was that? It was a Tim Allen movie, and he had a kid who was with some like, I don't know, archaeologist or something. And so she had taken the kid and gone down to some island in South America, and Tim Allen was Mr. CEO, Fortune 500, whatever, and his 13-year-old son tries to come to the city to find him, and
right,
he's like the wild child coming into civilization and all that.
yeah,
It was just stuff like that. This absentee um absentee father who then is this kind of has to learn to be a person in
right,
order to connect with their kid.
right,
So with Joseph Cisco here, I kind of saw elements of that. Like he was so used to presenting himself one way towards his son. He's always laughing. He's got a great joke, a funny story, something about the restaurant. There's just this very, it's a loving atmosphere, but it's a very controlled atmosphere. Joseph Cisco directs everything within it. And now
right,
that Ben is older and is a father himself and also has to oversee all kinds of people and everything else, he sees through it. He understands now that his father is different. and trying to interject into that and get his father to take care of himself was where they were having their issues. It wasn't a like a total lack of communication issue, but more the slow changing of their roles of caregiver. Who is the caregiver is
Right.
changing here.
Right.
So I just found it very fascinating to watch, and
Mhm.
I just like the way that they did the approach here of you know, like I said, watching Ben interact with Jake versus watching Ben interact with Joseph, and it's almost like he's just two different people.
Mhm.
I mean, how he's so caring with Jake, and he listens to Jake, and he's joking with Jake, and he's not overriding Jake or anything like that. He's just there listening. And then with his dad, he's like, "You have got to do this stuff. This has to be done. There is no other ands ifs about it.
Right.
That kind of thing." So the different dynamics, I just loved watching that very familiar family scene play out in the Star Trek backdrop because it's not something
Right.
that we've ever really seen before.
Yeah.
And again, great credit to Avery Brooks and to Brock Peters. Brock Peters, who plays Joseph Sisko, of
Right.
course. Great credit to both of them for doing such a fantastic job representing this family dynamic here so
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah. 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 It's a well done family dynamic. Um, for what we see so far, and yeah, I assume we'll get more of it here in part two. Looking
Mhm.
forward to that. Again, I'm glad it's a two-parter because it this
Yeah.
storyline of all the storylines that we've said, ah, it should be a two-parter. This is one that definitely needs it because this is our main threat. This
There,
is
yeah.
Earth. Yeah.
There was just too much here for them to do this as a single episode between the Cisco family thing going on, the changeling on Earth, the Admiral Layton wanting control. There's so much that if they had tried to shoehorn this into one episode, it would have failed spectacularly because there
Right.
just would have been enough time to resolve everything. So
Right.
something would have been left kind of, hanging out there, and we would have had to just wait and hope that they would come back around to it at some point. And in in all likelihood, it would have been the Cisco family story. Did we ever
Yes.
resolve this drama or not?
Right.
That would have been, yeah,
Yeah.
tossed in or shortened to give us
Right.
more time for the other thing.
And there's one
Um,
little detail we didn't mention yet.
Go ahead.
When Cisco is talking with Jake, Jake mentions, "Oh, did you tell your grandpa yet that we've been asked to stay? Like you're going to be staying in San Francisco, not here in New Orleans, because their bed's always ready for them."
Hmm.
And Jake and Cisco's like, "No, I haven't told him yet." And that was like before they left. I think that was actually like when they were still in the
Yeah, when they
station. We had that
first,
conversation.
yeah, yeah, that's right. I think that's when they hadn't even left yet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's
that's right.
we can tell there's a lot of tension there. Unfortunately,
Well, there's this it's that nervous energy of trying to talk to your
yes.
elders, and let them know about certain things.
Right,
It's yeah, it's different.
right.
Um,
But I mean, it really does make
yeah,
me like the Jake Benjamin Cisco relationship has been stellar at every point.
yeah.
Even a couple episodes ago, it was Jake who was giving his father love advice. Like let your girlfriend, if she wants to make a decision about her life, you can't control her. You need to just be open with her about your own feelings and thoughts, and you need to give her the respect she deserves of responding how she will to your decisions. And anyway, Jake gave feedback to his own father, and his father listened, and it was sweet and it was great and it was lovely, and it makes you sad that his own father um, is just not that same way. Yeah, so,
And I have to say again, like I love the Cisco family dynamic so much because as a single parent myself, I always find myself intensely interested in watching these kinds of things play out because
right.
it isn't something that you see very often. And even in my own life, I don't know many other single fathers personally. I've interacted with a few here and there for different like groups and events and whatever else, but I'm not, there's not a single father friend group or whatever it is. I mean, well, I guess maybe there is. I've just never looked into it or whatever. But
Right.
I mean, there are a lot of things about it that can seem very isolating, and also can
Mhm.
seem it can make other things hard to do. and that's just being a single parent, period, not just as a single father.
Hmm.
But you know, trying to figure out a way to balance your life and your own personal aims and goals and ambitions while also raising your child and properly taking care of your child and representing and supporting your child. I think that's the thing that I feel like I struggle with the most. I'm always worried whether or not I'm doing it, I guess the right way or not, and all that kind of stuff. And there's plenty of times where outsiders looking in will be like, "Oh yeah, you're doing great, you're doing fine, or whatever." But in here, it's just like, nah, there's like if I could describe it, there's like something just constantly screaming in the back of my head, to just do it right, just that constant whatever.
Right.
And to watch as Cisco is trying to lead by example with his kid, and then his own interaction with his father, and trying to bring all this together while also handling the high stress and pressure of his job and what else he's going through. I know that it's a fictional TV show, but I mean, this is exactly why, they say things like representation matters, because when you see that people are going through, however obliquely similar things, it does kind of help to, you know, formulate your own, thought process on what you want to do. Like for me, my main takeaways in watching stuff like this is I know that in watching Joseph and Ben versus Jake and Ben, I know that I want to be my dynamic to be more like Jake and Ben's. I want
Right.
my kid to feel like I hear her and that I am here for her and I
Right.
want to support her. And I may not understand everything that she wants to talk about or do or whatever, but I never want her to question that I am always going to support her and be there for her, just
Right.
like Cisco is for Jake. Jake has all kinds of stuff that he wants to do that Cisco is just like sometimes he's 100% not down for. Like his whole friendship with Nog, that whole thing, he was ready to shut it down, but he trusted his son enough to listen and learn, and to and ultimately he ends up referring Nog to Starfleet Academy. If Jake had never reached out to Nog, and if Cisco had never trusted his son, do you think any of that ever would have happened? Absolutely not. And again, if he had never done that, do you think Nog even would have had the courage to approach Cisco to ask him
Right.
to refer him to Starfleet Academy if it wasn't for his interaction with Jake and getting to know Ben through Jake and seeing how
Right.
much Jake trusted his father and depended on his father? Like without those two, the bond that those two had, we wouldn't have Nog in Starfleet
Right.
Academy.
Right.
So, like, I think about stuff like that and how just that indirect relationship affected so many other things that we're going to see, not just in this episode, but in episodes to come,
Right.
that I really love. And I again, I applaud Avery Brooks for taking it so seriously
Right.
and giving such a heartfelt performance and building on this dynamic here.
Right. Yeah. 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 It's been a great. This is a good episode. This is definitely um, one that, I mean, obviously it'll be like essential viewing. You got to watch this one. Um,
Yes, this would be one I would say should be on that list. Like
yeah,
that other
hundred
one
percent.
that we
Just no.
watched, whatever that
Yeah.
was, Little Green Men.
Yeah. Stuff
This
like that.
should be
Yeah.
on. Yeah, this
Right.
should be on your
Or the
list.
last one where Bashir was James Bond. Is like,
Yeah.
okay, buddy.
Okay. Yeah. What a waste of an hour, especially when you know that like when you know this episode is coming. But could you imagine going back to when these were all just originally airing, and you had to sit through Our Man Bashir, which you probably laughed at. You took a little bit. I'm not going to
Yeah, I
deny.
laughed at it. Yeah.
But then you come to this, and I
Yeah.
mean, just the total up
Yeah.
and down. I would have been like, what is happening here? Talk
Right.
about peaks and valleys, man.
Yeah.
We were down.
Yeah.
And now you're coming in here with this, and it's a two-parter in
Well,
the middle of the season.
oh, again, I still love how Avery Brooks chewed scenery in that last episode.
Oh, yeah.
That
Yeah.
alone is worth watching again. He chewed that scenery so hard. Oh my gosh, you could have put a brick in his mouth and it would have come out in pebbles. Um, but yeah,
Uh,
yeah, this. I mean, I'm sad. I guess I'll say this though. I'm sad that the rest of our cast had to be absent for this episode because,
I understand.
again, we got
But
Worf and Dax and early.
it's
They
a
they were
it's a two-parter. It's a two-parter.
yeah, Oh, all right.
Mhm.
Yeah, good point. Maybe I mean enough of them are. I mean, we have enough Federation officers on our in our crew. It makes sense that they would be involved in some capacity. So yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. Maybe there is something that we do next episode. I hadn't thought about that. I thought it would just continue as it's going on, but no, you're right. There's a chance that we could bring them in. So I hope they're brought in because I would hate for, as much as I love the Cisco dynamic and seeing changelings impersonate admirals we just met and talking to presidents. I love how the president of the Federation is an alien
A
on
Grazerite.
Earth. Yeah, which is it's. I
Yes.
mean, it's fine. It makes sense, and the Federation is larger than just Earth, but he's trying to basically kind of lead Earth, but he's not himself from Earth. It's an interesting dynamic. I mean,
Which
it's
is
basically a
something that
Benjamin Sisko himself is having to deal with
and
as
that's
the
something that Admiral Layton says as well. He's like, Jairzinho, he's a great man, but this isn't his planet. You can't expect him
right.
to care for it the way that we do. He says
Right.
that.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes.
he's very much aware of that as well. And what I always found interesting about that too is he is the Federation president, but his office is on Earth, and he is intensely concerned with how things are viewed on Earth of all
Right.
places. It's just
Yeah.
like, I mean, man, what about Vulcan and Teller Prime and Andoria and so forth? Like, there's all these other places. There's 100 and something member worlds of the Federation, man. Like,
Right.
I get it. It's Earth, which is kind of like, ground zero for Starfleet. So, I mean, I do understand, but at the
Right.
same time, it's just like, we're kind of acting like Earth is existing in its own weird bubble where it only has these resources right here to take care of this thing that's going on. But in
Right.
reality, no, you don't. You have people
Right.
that you can call from all over the place. And
Right.
that brings up another point. When the power goes down, I just want to know how is that even possible?
Yeah. Yeah. As I mentioned.
There's a
Yeah.
there's a giant space dock in orbit around Earth. It's huge. How in the world did this thing not have an immediate backup? Like,
Well, they say
there's
the
this
backups are taken out too.
that's what
Like,
I'm saying. Like, they
yeah.
even took out the backups, and then they were transporting people from the Lakota. Why weren't you transporting them from space dock? It's huge.
Right.
It's huge. The Enterprise D can go in there, and there's plenty of room to spare. I, there's got to be at least 1 million people on the space dock. What were you doing? Why is no one contacting space dock and
Right.
getting troops and ships or sending out? Why didn't all of your ships come out of space dock at that point? Form a protective perimeter around the planet because something must be coming. Like,
Right.
none of these things happened. There were so many things that was just like, nope, we only got like one ship and this handful of officers, and we're just gonna max them out and redeploy forces here on Earth, and there you go.
Right.
So many times I was just like, yeah, this doesn't make sense unless something isn't right. Like, and not just with the whole power shutdown, but something else isn't right here. Something else is not being
Hmm.
communicated. That's what I kept thinking because there's no reason that Earth space dock shouldn't have been involved, that there shouldn't have been other ships around. We know that Earth has a perimeter security system, automated drone ships. We saw them when the Borg uh, came to Earth in that cube that the Enterprise destroyed when
Picard
Jean-Luc,
was. Yeah.
yeah, best of both worlds.
Yeah.
When he came, they destroyed him. I'm assuming since then they probably had to restock,
Yeah.
rebuild. Okay, so that means we should have had the next generation of
Right.
drone ships
Well.
to protect. None of it. We see no deployments, no nothing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, highly
Yeah. The fact that
suspicious.
only the Lakota is available is very weird.
Yeah,
Why aren't
that
there
alone should
like?
have tripped some people off. Like, why only the Lakota?
Yeah. Exactly. The other thing I was thinking about as we've been talking, as you mentioned, at Worlds is the episode after all that. Part two was when Picard goes to visit his brother in France at the winery, and that's it has a very similar vibe to this episode where the family member is this stubborn family member who causes stress for our main
Hmm.
character. I mean, Picard has like a mental breakdown at the end of the episode, like all the stress of what had happened to him is able to finally be expressed because of what he's experiencing with his brother. Um, so I don't know if Cisco's not quite there. I don't know if it would be a similar dynamic, but there's certainly a similar theme of family causes stress in high tense situations, and that can be a good thing and a bad thing. Maybe we'll see more of that in the next episode.
Mhm. Now, I do want to touch on two characters real quick once again, and this is just to highlight kind of some behind the scenes of three characters. We have, of course, Brock Peters, who played Joseph Cisco here. Little known fact, or that's not really little known. Brock Peters is kind of a Star Trek alum. He has been in other Star Trek things before. He played Admiral Cartwright in Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, and in Star Trek Six: The Undiscovered Country. Both great
Okay.
movies to check out. Star Trek 4, also known as the one with the whales. So yeah, go watch that. And then of course The Undiscovered Country, which is the last feature movie, last full length film to feature the original Star Trek cast, Kirk, Spock, all those guys. So if you're interested,
Uh-huh.
go and watch those. And then yeah, of course he plays Captain Cisco, or no, yeah, Captain Cisco's father here in Deep Space Nine. He also had a pretty famous long time career. He was in the original 1962 film To Kill a Mockingbird with Gregory Peck. So if you're interested in seeing a
Oh,
very,
wow.
very young Brock Peters, you should go and check out that movie.
He's the one
You've
on
probably
trial.
already seen it. Yes, he's the one who
Yeah.
was falsely accused of raping the white woman in that case, in that
Okay.
movie. So, yeah, you should definitely go and watch that as well. You've probably already seen it. A lot of us watched that in like school and stuff because
Oh,
we,
yeah.
you read the book and then you watched the movie. That was always the thing. I remember watching it in school as well. So,
Right.
yeah, Brock Peters, great actor, great, kind of a legendary figure on both on and off the screen. He did a lot of theater stuff as well.
Hmm.
So he passed away in 2005, 2000,
5.
yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
2005. So go and check that movie out. Check all those movies out, the Star Trek ones, To Kill a Mockingbird, all of them. Um, Great films to watch. My personal favorite film featuring the original cast, besides um, The Wrath of Khan, is The Undiscovered Country. It's a great movie, and I think it's a great final send off for that crew as well.
Okay.
The last one, of course, or the next one is Admiral Layton, who we do see also in a couple of different treks. We first see him here in Deep Space Nine as Admiral Layton, but he later pops up in Star Trek Enterprise. He plays the Vulcan minister, which is basically their equivalent of president.
Uh-huh.
He's like the first minister, I think is his title or something like that. So yeah, he's there as well. And I would tell you more about him, but if I tell you any more about him, it's going to give away everything that's coming up in part two. So we'll be back to talk about Admiral Layton.
Okay.
He also turns up in Babylon 5. He was an admiral there. But I forget what his character's name was in that one, but he like goes missing. And I don't think
Okay.
he's ever found in that one.
Oh.
And then, of course, we have Captain Benteen, who is the captain of the Lakota. She should look very familiar to everyone because she also played Dr. Leah Brahms on Star Trek The Next Generation, the hologram turned real person
That
love
was
interest of Geordie
Brahms?
LaForge. Yes, that is Leah right there. So she looks really
Really?
different. Looks real different, doesn't she, with that hairstyle and a uniform change? It's amazing what it'll do for a person.
Yes.
But yes,
Yeah.
that is Dr. Leah Brahms,
Okay. All
masquerading
right.
as Benteen here.
All right. Yeah,
So
no, I mean her whole style, personality is
style, demeanor, all of it was completely different. Like it took you a second, but I kept staring. I was like, I know I've
like
seen her.
yeah.
And then she talked. Right. Right. Well, I mean,
Wow.
it was several years, in between when she was on Next Generation to here. So yeah, she probably was, working out, took care of herself, whatever it is, and trimmed up a bit and rolled in
Well,
for
I
a
mean,
Starfleet uniform. I mean,
well,
she wasn't
I just
wasn't unattractive before, but I'm just saying she just is
yeah,
different.
well, her role here as a captain is as like a a fit a fighter. She's not just a scientist with her hair down in more casual civilian clothes. Like she is she looks athletic is I guess is the
Mhm.
term. She looks very fit, and so if you had said it, I would never have guessed. I mean, part of her face looked familiar. Like if you had said, "Do you think you've ever seen her before?" I might have gone like maybe, but the fact that she's Leah Bronze, like what?
Completely different, but
Yeah.
it's her. That's
Okay.
Leia. She's back.
Wow.
So yes, and then one other slight call out that I wanted to do as well was if you were paying any attention at all, you would have also noticed that Cisco's uniform changed for this episode. When
It
we
did look it had like it had
yes,
yeah.
when we first see him, he's
Go
wearing
ahead.
the
Yeah.
one that's all black and then it's got the red shoulders. We'd gotten used to seeing him in that one pretty much the whole time. Then when he made it to Earth and he gets his promotion,
Right.
he is now wearing the TNG style uniform, which is the full red with the black shoulders and the red arms and everything else. So some people have tried to like figure out reasoning behind the uniform switch. I just think that there was probably like behind the scenes, there was probably some issues, and with costuming or whatever. And so they were like, "Here, put this on." But I
Here's
believe that the in-universe, right? I think that the in-universe reasoning behind the uniform change was that he is no longer assigned to a fixed position like a station or whatever. So that's why they changed his uniform. Which to me, I was like, "But he's on a planet, which is like the ultimate fixed position." So. That doesn't make any sense. So, but yeah, it's just he was promoted and his job title changed, and so his uniform changed accordingly. Just like Worf when he comes onto the
Gotcha.
Deep Space Nine and his promotion, and then his uniform changed. So that's what they
Yeah.
said.
He's now
But
part of command.
yeah, but I was just like, not
Gotcha.
quite buying it. I just think that y'all needed to put him in something that made him stand out a bit more. Because if you think about it, he stands out more in these scenes. Because everything else is like a very bright, pale something or whatever, and then he walks in and he's a very vibrant splash of red in the scenery. And it was often just him,
Right.
and then like next to Odo or something. So yeah, but that's it.
Right.
Those are kind of the call outs that I wanted to make for this episode, and kind of just touching on everything. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to say, David, about Homefront?
No, I think I've said my piece.
Yeah, there was a lot here, as we said, and it is a two-parter episode. So there will be more that we can talk about next week, and that one will actually be like as close to live as we can be. So be ready for that. Of course, you'll still be able to find us anywhere that you find podcasts. I happen to listen to us again on Spotify because let's face it, I love the sound of my own voice. So, all that to say, please, find us, follow us, join us. If you have any questions, comments, throw them our way. We'd love to talk with you about them. But until next time, take care of yourselves.
Thanks, guys.